All right, so Tracy writes in, this is actually pretty profound, actually. And I think it's a guy, Tracy. Anyway, he says, fear of pulling the plug. How do you overcome fear of pulling the plug to enjoy retirement, even when your local guy and the right capital software are saying that you're in good shape? You know, I think this needs a little bit of attention thrown at it, because I have a sneaky suspicion many of us on YouTube are similar to me. We're thinking people. We're thinkers. We're doers. We are inquisitive. We're curious. I don't want to say not trustworthy, but I think YouTube audiences definitely more people say more engineer types. They do want to see how the watch is made, not just know what time it is, if that makes sense. That doesn't mean they need to know how it's made. They just want to see it. How did you get to that? It's not distrust, a lack of trust. It's just like, it's an evidence. We're evidence-based people. So Tracy says, look, man, you know, right capital showed me 100%. My local guy showed me 100%, but man, I just worry about seeing the capital decline. How do you contend with that? Well, that's what Richard Thaler won his Nobel Prize on, which I actually subscribe to, which is the idea of not having an income and instead transitioning to principal. Having money come from income is easy to spend because income is never there in one lump sum, where principal, i.e. capital, is there in one lump sum. And when you see that capital decline, it's freaking scary. There's a psychological, I don't know what the word would be, hesitancy, I guess, to see what was 100,000 be down to 98,000 bucks. Actually, it's funny too when you think about like the Dow 10,000. Why is the Dow 10,000 any more valid than the Dow 10,200? Well, it's just a nice round number. It's psychologically we can wrap our teeth around it. It's interesting because Thaler, you talked about that, where just you have, again, this is where the buckets of money thing comes in. And he won his Nobel Prize on this. Nassim Nicholas Taleb challenges Thaler a lot, actually, which I love Nassim. I love him. I think he's wrong in this regard, though. He said there's, this basic behavioral finance is almost like poppycock. I don't know if I agree with that. He's saying basically it's almost like economics wanting so hard to prove they're scientists. Yeah, throwing psychological, and I'm butchering what he said. You can read his books. Wanting so hard to prove valid, the physics and the economists, that they throw these terms in there. I forgot what Thaler's term was. I'm just drawing a blank what it's called. But anyway, the bucket's essentially what it is. I actually disagree with Nassim Taleb here. I think there's a lot of psychological aspects to this when it comes to money. And I just use my own, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. My own case is one where I said, I'm quit my crappy old job, start my business. Once my IRA, which is 401k rule to my IRA, drops below 100,000 bucks, I'm quitting. I'm going back to work, whatever crappy old job it was. Why 100,000? Why not 120? Why not 90? It's just because it's a nice round number, 6 figures to 5. Something very scary there. And I'll tell you, when you're living off capital as opposed to income, man, you get a lot more tight with the belt. Let's just put it that way. When you got income you're living on, and that's a paycheck every week. You show up, you get a paycheck. Show up, you get a paycheck. Show up, you get a paycheck. You want that thing on Amazon? You buy that thing on Amazon. When you're living off capital, you say, is that thing on Amazon worth seeing the decline in my capital base? And on top of that, which is why the two buckets I love, if I buy that thing on Amazon, just say I got 120,000 bucks. I just use that for example. If I buy that thing on Amazon for 1,000 bucks, I've never spent 1,000 bucks on Amazon, but just hear me out. And on top of that, the market goes down 20%. Right? So now I'm at 120. Market goes down 20%. Let's say that's 102. Off the top of my head, I don't know what exactly that would be. And now I spent that $1,000 thing on Amazon, so now I'm at 101. I'm hanging on by a thread of my 6 figures in my IRA. Do I really need that $1,000 product? And you're gonna say quickly, no, you don't, unless you did. It's certainly not gonna be just basic consumption for the sake of consuming, though. Now, if you're on salary and you're making money, you even go into debt to buy that thing. Because you're like, look, his salary doesn't stop unless something royally goes wrong or whatever. And no one expects they to be the one getting laid off. No one expects them to be the one that has an issue at work. I'll never forget one time when I first started USAA, this guy was, man, he was just being it was just weird, man. And we're having this meeting. And we had just moved down here. It was down in Midtown in Buckhead. And we're having this meeting. And this guy had just, something was not clicking. It was weird, man. I'll never forget. And apparently there's some other instances of this guy just not having a bad day, let's just put it that way. Essentially, this guy got in my face like he's gonna fight me. I was like, dude. So I walked away because as you get older and more mature, as you get older and more mature, you hold off of what would not have happened probably 10 years previously. But I just walked away. I said, whatever. That guy got fired because that was like his 3rd time like losing it with people. And you just can't do that in an environment. But anyway, I'll never forget, I said, initially, they looked at me like I was part of the problem, and I wasn't. I just, look, I mean, the guy just did not see the way things, he basically was going off on some guy that I liked a lot. The guy he was going off on was just the nicest guy in the world, and he was bullying me. There's no other way around that. He's just being a bully. I said, man, just, look, you have a difference of opinion. He sees it one way, you see the other way. Why do you care? It's just weird. And he got really upset with me for taking up for this other guy that he was trying to bully. I don't get it. All right, you see a different way, just move on. It's not your deal. And anyway, took a break. He came outside. I was like really upset with me. It was strange. I guess he felt I embarrassed him. I said, well, you kind of embarrassed all of us, dude. I mean, that's what I said. He's like, he didn't say I embarrassed him, but he's all like, bah. I said, but dude, you're embarrassing. You're embarrassing us all by hammering this guy who everyone likes. He's a good guy. He's doing his best, and you're just like, and the guy's such a lighthearted guy. He's not going to defend himself. It's just embarrassing. And it's like, we're all just had it. Stop. And he got real mad. So I just walked away. I said, I don't need any of this. The issue, though, I'll never forget driving home. It's like, my boss, like, I have to look into this a little bit, thinking, am I going to lose my job over this? I mean, I'll never forget that. Thinking, I literally went to work for a meeting. Some guy was bullying some other guy. I stood up for him. And now, I'm about to lose my job. I mean, I remember thinking, what am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's scary, man. So when your source of income is threatened quickly, that's why people stay in their crappy old jobs. They're like, they don't have a plan on how to deal with that lack of income because they're so used to be able to consume, so used to be able to go to Disney, so used to be able to go to Hershey like we did, so used to be able to do this and that, buy that thing on Amazon. And all of a sudden, one fell swoop, it's gone. Man, people will do whatever they can to stay in that crappy old job in order to have that ability to consume. What's the word I'm looking for? Not graciously consume, but anyway, some kind of word. Just consumption. And it's too bad because that is what keeps them in the crappy old job. They're like, man, I like the idea of being able to just consume whatever I want to consume because I know I'll get paid next week. But you're like, what happens if you don't get paid next week? What happens if that ability to earn an income goes away? And that's where it gets nerve-wracking. That's why people stay in their crappy old jobs, so they're miserable because they can't live without that. And so what happens is you start saying, well, this is why when it comes from capital, you're more inclined to tighten the belt because you're sitting there saying, I don't want to see my capital being reduced. That scares me. And I say what it should scare you too is what happens if your salary, your income is that threatened because of a crappy job, because of outsourcing to India, because you don't subscribe to the crappy way they're telling you to sell stuff to unwary consumers. You see what I'm saying? And if you looked at your job the same way you look at your capital, you would have less of a fear of pulling the trigger, because you say, look, my income is my capital on my body, as I'm pulling income from working every day. That's my income, it's my capital. I'm literally exhausting my capital in front of my very eyes by doing this job. Doesn't mean it's bad, but you got to transition how you're looking at your income source. Is it a salary that you get from every 2 weeks, every month, every week? Well, that salary is being derived from someplace. It's being derived from your time. You have a certain amount of time, 2,080 hours a year, times how many years you work. You are drawing down from that time, that capital, which is an income, but it's time. It's more valuable than capital because it's you. You're taking that money, pulling it, drawing it down every week, every day, sitting on some crappy traffic, going to some crappy lunch, having to hear some PC HR guy come and say, oh, we can't say Merry Christmas because, oh, all this stuff. You're drawing on that resource, but you don't look at it like that because you don't see it's the capital as you just look at capital as income, but capital as your money that you've squirreled away. But your capital is your time, it's your labor, it's your brain power that you're sacrificing for that consumption. You're saying, it's worth to me to sit here in this crappy old job and use my brain power sparingly, if at all that, or even embarrassingly, because it's based on some job that's telling me to do things I don't necessarily agree with, or I just don't like, which is fine if you got to pay the bills. But if it's not just where you're paying the bills because you like living some, the 2 weeks or 4 weeks a year that you're not putting in the time, your vacation and stuff like that, you're saying, I'll sacrifice 48 weeks so I can get 4 weeks of what I want to do. And if you look at it like that, you say, okay, you got income and you got capital. All right, capital is my savings I've had from putting money away, from working. Income is what I get from working. Does that make sense? So income is current. I'm saving away capital. That's one way to look at it. But if you look at it like differently, the capital is the amount of time you have on this planet. And every day you're going into that job, you're drawing down that capital, which will never be found again. It's gone. It's even worse than seeing your portfolio fall from 120 to 101, because you're saying that capital is no longer there. I can never get back. I'll never be 49 years old in 6 months, in 3 weeks, in 1 hour again, or whatever it is. I'll never be there. So you're going into that bank of your time on earth, drawing that capital down because you want to consume that $1,000 thing from Amazon today. So that's how you got to look at it, pulling the plug. If you say, I want my time is more valuable for me than working some crappy old job with some stupid boss, with some crazy coworkers. Can I find something to do instead? Maybe I don't get paid as much, but maybe, as opposed to drawing down my capital, is something I enjoy. So mentally, I'm not increasing my capital so much, but I'm certainly living something that I wasn't doing before. Emotionally, it's rewarding. So I might not be building up my capital from a financial perspective, but I'm actually increasing my emotional capital by doing something I enjoy. If that means I got to tighten my belt a little bit, not buy the thing from Amazon, which I don't really need, so be it. Well, what would that be? I don't know. Look, man, I backed into YouTube. I love YouTube. It's freaking, for me, I've said this before, it's life-changing. I freaking love it. It's nuts. I didn't know I'd love it so much. And I'm telling you, I followed this guy, Miles Beckler, Beckler. Not really watching that much anymore, just because I don't watch that many videos that much anymore because I'm so busy doing my own thing. But I just followed him 90 videos in 90 days. I'm sure he didn't mark that, but I just followed it, and then I just liked it. I enjoyed doing it. I always liked doing seminars and presentations. I didn't know I would. That's what I tell my kids too. I say, look, you're 19, 16, 12, and 11. What you are today will not be what you are 5 years from now, which will not be what you are 5 years from then. You have no idea. Things are going to change. You don't know. I would never think I'd be this guy doing this ever. I was always a shy kid. And then somehow it took me a long time, I found my bearings doing presentations. And I enjoyed it immensely. But I backed into it. I never would have thought this would be me. Doing this for a living is crazy. So I don't know what it would be for you, Tracy. You might love what you do right now. If you love what you do right now, but maybe you don't feel valued at your current job, or maybe if you love what you do, don't quit. There's nothing wrong with working. If you enjoy it, hell, you enjoy getting paid. Like someone commented on my channel the other day, what a life, you get paid to walk Pablo. I thought that's pretty good. I said, yeah. I'm like, YouTube isn't paying me anywhere what I used to make, but it's paying the mortgage, which is pretty fantastic if you ask me. You got to find what you like. And I don't know if you can make an income off it, but if you like what you're doing and you do it all the time, the amount of emotional capital you're building, again, you're not drawing it. You don't have a bank account, but it just changes your perspective. And when it changes your perspective, for me, it's emotionally satisfying, gratifying, pleasing. It's just making me a better person. Even if I was financially less well off than I used to be, on the whole scheme of things, I'm much better off. And the irony of it all is, this is what I learned again from Andy Stanley, the non-denominational preacher here in Georgia. And I don't attend his church, a little bit too rock and rollish for me, North Point Community Church. But he talks about, when you give, it's ironic that the more you give, the more you receive, and that you don't give with that conscious effort, like, hey, if I could donate, God's going to give you $1 million. It doesn't work like that. But you give with happiness. It's amazing how many doors open up that never were open before. And the same kind of thing, if you're enjoying what you do, it's amazing how that can be perceived in the overall scheme of the universe that is karma, if you will. I don't know what Christians would call it, but just your aura that exists around you when you're doing stuff you enjoy. People can see it, they can feel it. And this is why I always hated the Christians who want to bash people over the head with the Bible. We will get you to convert with our rational arguing. No, don't do that. This is where the Pope, everyone's bashing on the Pope, and he's saying, you don't proselytize. Look, everyone's saying, oh, Pope, that's whatever. I was like, man, he wasn't saying it like that. He was saying, I forgot who it said, St. Augustine, something like that, I don't know. At all times, preach the Bible, use words when needed, or something like that. I forgot who said that. At all times, preach the Bible, when required, use words. That's what the Pope was saying, and I just look, man, people wanting to bash, like, you got to prophesize. No, you don't do it. Here's the Bible. You do it with a smile. You do it with living and just knowing that you found God's grace. The happiness, the passion. People see that in you. They see it in the aura, man. And they said, oh, man, he's got something I want. Why do you think the Mormons are so good? Yeah, I know they go from house to house. But it's not that those little kids on bikes going from house to house. It's the joy. This is where, I tell you, this is where Islam, I'm going to be careful where I go here. This is where you can appeal to people who are having a bad day, if that makes sense. Because what happens is people say there's got to be a better way. I don't know what it is, but what I'm doing right now isn't it. And if you can catch those people, and what I would say is you catch them through love, smiles, peace. You see what I'm saying? That's why Cassius Clay, for instance, we'll just use him for example. Muhammad Ali. Muslims say, look, in Malcolm X's autobiography talks about this. And it's weird how that was assigned reading in my school. You know, again, I went to a pretty mixed school. I don't know if it was assigned reading in your school, but it was an interesting take on Islam. I don't think that should be assigned reading, frankly, but it was back then. But it's an interesting take. Maybe my mom told me to read that. I don't think it was assigned reading. I think my mom did. But the point was, he's saying, look, all these Christians run around here, you know, they don't like me because of my skin color, right? He goes, then I find Muslims, they take on anybody. He goes, that gave me the peace and serenity I needed. Now, some will use that for hostile regions. Christians do the same. But at the end of the day, when people are down on their luck, that's when they need someone to say, look, there's a better way. Join us. And that's the aura you get when you're loving what you do. People say, man, so I hear all the time, man, you got so much passion for this. You know, that passion is, what's the word I'm looking for? Addictive. I see that. I get that all the time. I said, no, it's great. Because if I can get you excited about retirement planning, where you start thinking about, maybe I can pull the trigger. Well, pull the trigger is not the right word. Maybe I can punch out for the last time and do something that gets me fired up. Man, what? How could you not love that? How could you not love the ability to touch somebody and say, look, you know, I don't know if you're going to be okay, but maybe thinking about a different perspective. And if you can think about a different perspective, you can see that there might be a way out of this tunnel that has been dug for you, this trap that has been put in front of you that I'm going to tell you, you volunteered for it, as did I. But you don't have to do that till you die. Anyway, so yeah, I've been here for a long time. But remember, the capital of the time, you only have so much. And even though you don't see it in the bank account, you're drawing it down every year, Tracy. I'll just work one more year just to make sure. That's one more year you won't have for your own, whatever it is that you want to do. And because of that, what happens if you got killed in a car crash? I mean, look, I'm not trying to scare you the other way. Say, look, you could die tomorrow, you better enjoy what you like to do. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying at the end of the day, there's a consequence to all your actions. If you're looking good financially and you feel pretty comfortable with that, man, and I think the answer is right there. I give you permission to hang up your boots and go on and do the thing you're put on this earth to do. And if what you're put on this earth to do is what you're doing right now, hey, then keep doing it. My inclination is not, or else you wouldn't have sent me this email. All right. Blessings to you, brother. See you.